Considered by some as a simple curiosity in the mid-1970s, the video game industry has grown from focus markets to mainstream. In the past few years, consumers have spent more on video games worldwide than they have on films. Studies indicate that video games were once the nearly exclusive domain of the young, mostly aged 18 or less. However, today the demographic has changed according to the Entertainment Software Association, with ages of 50 plus enjoying gaming on multiple platforms. The industry has expanded to almost $30 billion in annual global sales, generating more revenue than Hollywood, and is estimated to grow to £84.2 billion by 2015. In spite of this, there has been almost nothing written about this medium. In the last few years, a small handful of universities have created tiny departments dedicated to video game studies. However, for an industry employing literally tens of thousands of artists, designers, writers and musicians all over the world, video gaming still seems incredibly underrepresented when we consider the enormous film theory or music sections at our local bookstores. Therefore, it is often hard to discuss such a vast and differentiated medium. However, it is a topic worth discussing, especially in relation to our own country of Ireland, where the industry is due to increase rapidly within the next few years. The industry's rise is eagerly awaited by many, and will be of such a degree that the government felt the need to establish the trade body Games Ireland in order to organise this rising sector. Games Ireland is committed to working with Forfas, the state agencies and the relevant government departments to work on specific actionable items to be put in place to support the growing industry. Established in 2010 and formally incorporated in 2011, Games Ireland represents companies in Ireland involved in the creation, development, publishing and distribution of video games. It is an advocacy group which unifies Irish games sector and drives sustainable growth in the industry at a crucial time for this country. Games Ireland is especially focused on representing Ireland's growing Indigenous industry, providing structural support and promoting a conducive environment for funding and investment. Current memberships include international stakeholders such as Activision, Blizzard, Big Fish Games and Riot Games, together with local pioneers Havoc and Demonware. At the release of the latest Forfas report this year, David Sweeney, CEO of Games Ireland, was recorded as saying that the video game industry is the most dynamic player in today's entertainment industry. Its unique mixture of creativity, technology and interactivity and fun gives it a head start on the competition. He also went on to say that Ireland's rich reservoir of talent, technique and tenacity means that it is now perfectly placed to play a leading role in Europe's video game industry. Indeed, the diverse range of job roles within Ireland will propel the games industry, while a great number of unemployed will find a role within the industry that encompasses dozens of job disciplines. Chief Executive of Forfas, Martin Shanahan, supported this, claiming that games can also be a catalyst for growth in a host of other related activities within the digital economy, including social networks, search engines, animation, film and video, and e-learning. Indeed, this is the reason the government is so eager to welcome the industry to Ireland, luring it in with tax-based incentives, R&D and project grants. The industry will give a new lease of life to traditional job disciplines such as photography, architecture, music, theatre and art. According to Bradley and Washaw, since video game design is a relatively new industry, job titles and descriptions may vary somewhat from company to company. This leaves employability more open-ended, with wider opportunities in each job field. Bradley and Washaw go as far as to say that some more likely non-digital job disciplines can also have a place within the industry. For example, as Kelman notes, game development now includes teams of experts in various fields, such as architecture and military engineering, who all work together to ensure that the fantastic experience of a game is as real as possible. As any architect knows, the ability to think in 3 dimensions is the key to imagining spaces that can be seen from all sides and can adapt to suit the imaginative purpose. The same is true for the environmental modelers and level builders who create the landscape and architectural elements of a game. Furthermore, the luxury of creating materials based on aesthetic value rather than cost would be a lovely respite for the restrained budgets in the physical world of an architect. Greg Moore sees many possibilities in this area, claiming that video game and virtual worlds offer new potentials to present space to create architectures inhibited by globally distributed audiences. Don Carson has already made the leap from architecture to game design. He previously designed theme parks and now works on computer games, stating that the objectives are the same for both fields. The problem solving behind both fields questions, how do I draw my audience into an imagined world and tell a story through the experience of travelling through a real or imagined physical space? Another possible career transition over to the games industry is from theatre. Bradley and Washaw draw a very clear comparison between the world of theatre and that of video game design, highlighting the similarity in both job fields. Writers, artists, hair and makeup teams, audio and lighting crew, and the set and costume design crew all have very relatable jobs within the games industry. And indeed, many theatre professionals have already made the transition into games design. For example, Linda Bathory, a former technical director turned game modeller and texture artist. Bathory believes that video game world design is the same type of work as theatre, only virtual. Likewise, actors can find work within the industry for both voice-over or motion capture recording. Southwest College in Enniskillen has already added motion capture technology to their campus, which highlights just how quickly the industry is affecting education and employment opportunities as we speak. Another area relatable to the games industry is that of film and television. As digital technologies transformed television and all other media at the beginning of the 21st century, interactive television in the form of video games burst on the scene. In this sense, video games spawned from television. Kelman draws his analogy as far back as cinema, which was once known as the toy that grew up because it made a similar transition from an amusement parlour attraction into a highly successful industry. Durbin also draws similarities between video games and film in reference to the form of hardware they use to transmit the narrative. Durbin adds that video games in some cases have also adapted the language of film to describe some mechanics, such as the location of the camera when creating virtual environments. Although there is no actual camera recording in the action, the term has now come to mean the angle of view, i.e. is the camera looking down on a figure or up towards the ceiling. Kelman further notes that video games are very similar to film in terms of writing and cinematography, while Durbin feels that video game stories must be compelling and structured to withstand episodic story structure just like television. Poster believes this has been achieved, adding that computer games establish and encourage embodied feelings by combining cinematic style and identification with the increased interactivity of digital media. Today, job roles such as screenwriting, storyboarding, concept art and character development are evident in both film and video game industries, and so the transition from one to another should be very natural. Furthermore, as mentioned earlier, video games have surpassed the film industry in terms of capital. This has a major impact on the economy through the sales of major systems and games such as Call of Duty Black Ops. This took in over $650 million in the game's first 5 days and set a 5-day global record for a movie, book or video game. The game's income was more than the opening weekend of Spider-Man 3 and the previous title holder for a video game, Halo 3. Many individuals have also benefited from the economic success of video games, including the former chairman of Nintendo and Japan's third richest man, Hiroshi Yamauchi. While the industry can be seen clearly benefiting the economic climate, Kelman believes that it now stands as a cultural capital in itself. Which brings us to the area in which the video games industry still has no clear footing, the art world. Kelman is of the opinion that video and computer games as we currently understand them constitute art. He bases this claim on two core arguments. First, that video game designers are gifted craftsmen who construct compelling and visually fascinating worlds, deploying skills which we would see as artful if applied in any other context. And second, that video games are constructing meaningful experiences which tap deep chords within our culture, in part because they are carrying on timeless functions previously associated with myths and legends. When Kelman seeks analogies, it is to the great works of the Western tradition, to the Homer epics, to Arthurian romance, to Moby Dick, and it is worth remembering that these now canonical works were once the popular culture of their time. In this respect, Ireland could, in the future, be remembered as a creator of classic video game art and narratives. Indeed, Ireland is a place fit for such legacy, given the rich cultural heritage of storytelling that our island already upholds. And although this may seem far-fetched, Clark and Mitchell remind us that things do change. New art forms do come into existence. Not often, but if you think back, there was a time when there were no novelists or poets or playwrights. Kelman goes as far as to say that video games represent what can easily become the most important art form of our era. One which both absorbs the most vital elements of all that has come before and pushes us towards new kinds of aesthetic experiences. At the moment, video games represent the latest in a series of what mid-20th century cultural critic Gilbert Seldes called lively arts. Art which occupies a space outside of the official art world, but which touch the lives of ordinary people, bringing them not just simple pleasure or entertainment, but also something approaching the sublime, which made them think and create, explore and experiment, and above all, play with the materials of their culture. Today, the fact that highbrow artists are starting to tap into game-like interfaces speaks to the impact this medium has on our visual culture. Furthermore, calling video games art matters because it helps to expand our current notion of art, and not because it allows curators to colonize some new space. However, to be sure, some gamers and game designers will want to deny that video games are art because of the lofty reputation art has in contemporary culture. Yet this says more about what some historians have called the sacredization of art across the late 19th century than it does about the merits of this particular medium. Clark and Mitchell inform us that many people look at this digital medium as a craft rather than an art form. James Aitken describes his work in film and television as commerce and not art. Later in an interview, he added, "I don't practice art, I practice a craft." Yet although one may reject that video games are art, it cannot be denied that their aesthetics do feed back into the art world. For example, Clark and Mitchell highlight how identifiable video game graphic styles have been appropriated by artists in the past. Indeed, the pixelated retro game imagery from Space Invaders has crossed into the mainstream media to the point where it has even become a cliché. Even so, there are still artworks such as the Screenshot series by John Haddock, which provide new and interesting perspectives on this idea. But perhaps most of all, these professionals fear that calling their work art will somehow make them responsible for it. Yet what would happen if calling video games art gave greater expressive freedom to the most gifted game designers, allowing them to explore new spaces, empowering them to experiment even more with their medium, and provided them with the kinds of critics who recognise and reward innovation? As Clark and Mitchell note, the established art forms have their prestigious awards, Grammys, Pulitzer Prizes, Academy Awards, and they also have their academic departments. Yet video games are nowhere near this level. Indeed, it is hard to say what actually ranks lower on the artistic food chain than video games. Comic books, TV sitcoms, X-rated films? In this respect, would calling video games art create better educated and more informed consumers who demand more from the games they play? One of the benefits to calling video games art is it will force current game designers to reevaluate their stereotypes about the art world and go back to earlier works with a fresh perspective. And with regards to the new generation of game designers, steps should be taken to ensure that during their education they are exposed to more great art in order to enrich and shape their future work in a positive way. The University of Ulster in particular has shown recognition of the importance of art for the designer through their Design for Interaction and Animation course that has a mandatory life drawing classes. Studying on a course like this that has an integrated art and design foundation year allows the students to discover art and be influenced by its leaders before embarking on their own game design. From our early 21st century perspective, we can see that great artists of the past were groping towards some of the things that our best game designers today accomplish almost effortlessly. Take Leo Tolstoy, for example. He spent almost 100 pages at the end of War and Peace reimagining how the Battle of Borodino would have come out if you tweak certain variables. Wouldn't Tolstoy have wanted a medium which could easily restage the battle again and again with different outcomes? Today this can be achieved so easily, with many games incorporating a series of multiple endings with outcomes that rely on the choices of the player, for example Heavy Rain. But this control given to the player does not end here. Games such as Half-Life allow the consumer to modify the game in order to have more control over the aesthetics and gameplay. While traditional art is static and fixed, to be framed and untouched, only viewed from afar, video game art like Half-Life gives you the paintbrush through online modifications, allowing you to make alterations and really immerse yourself in its composition. This in turn takes away from the precious or secret notion of art described by Kelman earlier. This immersive experience creates an ongoing conversation between the artist and the user, releasing art onto a new interactive platform that ensures the creation of new experiences, something that art has always strived to do. Although modification will be a foreign and difficult process for average members of the public, there are plenty of games that offer a similar interactive platform where users can create and alter gameplay. Games like Minecraft offer a simple building block type scenario where you can create your own world of objects as simple or complex as you see fit. Furthermore, games like Little Big Planet and The Sims give gamers the chance to be creative inside their worlds. Clark and Mitchell highlight how The Sims has also been used to recreate educational and historical events such as the killing of Lee Harvey Oswald. Video games in general are for much more than entertainment, Pavlik notes. They have been developed in a variety of fields, including education, medicine, and the military for training purposes. Education itself has been in the midst of a transformation shaped by several factors, including changes in contemporary art theories, political and economic factors, and technological developments. Film, music videos, advertisements, video games, and other forms of popular culture are shaping how students learn today. At a young age, video games can have a positive effect on development. Popular video games like Leapster appeal to children as young as 4, helping to teach such essential school skills as reading, writing, vocabulary, math, and critical thinking. Bolin and Blandy agree with Kelman and have recognised that video gaming might also represent a valid site for research and learning in the arts. While R. Smith implies that video game play in and of itself is linked to a wider cultural, social, material, and visual context of learning. R. Smith also gives the example of games like SimCity, which engages players in building cities and learning about urban planning, which can develop a student's strategic thinking and planning skills. This brings us back to the objectives within the 2013 4FAST report. The report stated a need for enhancing skills and experience and building a continuous feedstock of creative, technological and commercial capabilities. This will only come about through education. This way Ireland can continually produce a capable workforce for the industry. The 4FAST report also shared that Ireland hopes to double its employment in core games to 4,500 people by 2015. Courses such as the Creative Media in South West College have jumped at this opportunity for employment by further developing their course to include app development, animation, design, programming, games design, sound recording and motion capture. Through offering such a wide variety of disciplines at technical college level, students will be introduced to this industry at a much younger age. This in turn will perpetuate a larger workforce for the future. The 4FAST report lastly stated the need for a more anticipatory, agile and responsive approach to meet the industry's future needs. Martin Shanahan believes that effective implementation of such actions will provide companies with the right environment not just for the games sector but in the wider economy. Games Ireland has boldly stated that Ireland will be the best place to develop games by 2016, and this is something that we can all truly look forward to. Let the games begin.